Alrighty, let us continue with the recipe. And although that you will discover that you will probably not do it step 1 to 8 every single time, and sometimes it's good to make a little bit of artificial, this is how to do it, although we know that life happens and things are going to be different, and normally it's not just how these things operate and work. But let us go with the recipe anyways, because it's good to get a little bit of inspiration so that you will learn to do the cooking on your own. And I know there's a lot of food analogies, right? But the idea is the same. When we are doing this whole changemaker alternate reality creation, which is bullet point number C, the creation where we kind of say, okay, I want to do this project. I want to do something. And then there is this step ladder that you can do. And, I'll go through the steps, but I want to put in here a little bit of a project that I have got going. I mentioned it before, but I know it's premature. It's not going to be put out there, but it points out, in an exemplification, what we're working with, how we're dealing with. For instance, that one of the things that keeps coming back to me has been doing so ever since I began writing my books, The Souls of Humanity, was this whole kind of the alien agenda. And I'm just saying the alien agenda, even though that I know even that in itself is a false combination of words, because there are no aliens and there is no agenda. There are agendas, and there are exosystemic races. So we call the exosystemics and their activities here, which are kind of already covered, right? So what's left out there? What's left out there is the understanding that we could call it disclosure. And I've been touched ground with this many times. I tried it many times, and every time it gets shut down. And I think it gets shut down because first and foremost, there's a lot of material out there already. Sometimes when I just look into it on a kind of inner view, I go in and I kind of look into the collective net of information on that level. I'm being bombarded. I hear voices. There's YouTube. There are books. It is a loaded niche. It is swamped with information. So there's in all ways and forms really not anything new to add, right? And we have had these rebranders, as I call them, that have come up lately, that have taken the already information. For instance, we could use Luis Elizondo, that's been working. He worked with it from the angle of national defense, which was a new angle, but the information was the same. So we're having the same information, but people working with it from different angles, or they're taking it in and then they're rebranding it or pretending, oh, it's never been touched before. Well, it hasn't from them. So they are all new and fresh to the perspective, but they come up with the same conclusions every single time. It's a rabbit hole. It's promoted. It's AI run. It's cube run. Absolutely no doubt about that. It was for one project to begin with. It was a cloak story. Then it changed into something else and something else and something else. And now it's a huge building of all sorts of different types of information. Some of it accurate, some of not accurate. And you need to do a lot of what is it? What's really going on out there? You will say, well, and how are you going to make a business on disclosure? Well, from where I'm working as a kind of, I'm not thinking about making a business. You see, for me, that's the wrong approach. For me, the approach is to go in and have an idea that you feel or I feel is something. I want to investigate this. I want to put time and effort into this idea. I have this drive towards disclosure, but I know it's not what's out there. So I have to go into that process saying, I want to do this. I don't know if it's going to be for payment or non-payment, because these are the two new words I'm going to use. I'm not going to do pro-profit or non-profit. Because again, we have the profit, right? It's all about, oh, you're doing this business non-profit, as in kind of, oh, why are you doing that, right? Well, then it's not really business anymore, is it, right? Then it's charity or something like that. If you do it pro-profit, then it's all about doing the business for the sake of the business, for profit, and not for the cause, and not for the transformation of energy, and not for the whole idea of actually putting something out there that can be marketed, that can be sold as a product, but it's not the main goal. The main goal is not to earn money and make it a business, which is a trap that we quickly fall into. The goal is to to begin something that we find interesting, that we find, yes, I can feel my heart is beating here. Not that we are, as I said, to burn out in it, because that's the other side of wanting to do something where we are idealistic. So this is not about being idealistic. I want to change the world, and I know how to change the world. But it's kind of looking out there and saying, well, I can see, if you ask me, am I adamant in this is how I want to do it and why I want to do it? Absolutely not. So what am I dealing with here? Gut feeling. This kind of, I feel in my gut, there's something there. I don't know what it is. I know it's a process. I don't know where it's going, but it keeps coming back. I'm keep pushing it away. There have been a lot of good people doing that already. I don't need to meddle with that one. And then it just keeps coming back, and I then work with it, and then strands. It's like it gets stranded like a big whale that doesn't know how to swim anymore, old and died and whatever. And it's just rolling up on the beach, and it's just lying there, and it's just, yeah, why do I keep getting the idea if every time I try, it leads down a path where it strands, where it just blocks, and then it fizzles out, and then there's nothing to it, and then something else comes up. And then the question is, for a person like me, is to ask, okay, is it because it actually has a lot to it, but there are counterforces that doesn't want me to go that way? It doesn't feel like that. It more feels as if sometimes I come across the cubes and they ignite something in me, and then the cubes figure out, yeah, she's not one of our promoters, or she's not the one that's supposed to give this information. Oh yeah, or no, she'll break down the code and she will target us and take us down. So we'll better go somewhere else. So that could also be it. So there are different fluctuations of things that are coming in when we're working with our ideas and what we want to do and what we want to create, right? So it might be that, let's go with a complete, crazy scenario, that there are no aliens at all, that it's all promoted to make a smoke screen to cover the fifth dimensional or the fifth cycle workstations, or the enhanced humans, or whatever's left of the breakaway civilizations, or the ones of the humans that broke away during Atlantis and created their own societies. That's what I call the fifth cycle workstations. There are different variations of them. There are the ones from the future and the ones from the past, and they are working together. That could be very well be. It could be humans like you and me that are now in a more advanced state, that are living in what we call a slightly uplifted variation of our reality, and by that are no longer working with us. It's not the elite. The elite is inside the base program. So it's not the controllers, not the elite, it's not whatever. It's something completely different we haven't encountered yet. And I have that slight suspicion that actually might be the case. Because why create that smoke screen of aliens if it's actually humans? So the question is, why do that? And for me, the answer is simple, because these humans have done stuff to us inside the enclosure that they, similarly as if you were just envisioning that entire China was locked down, put into quarantine from the rest of the world community, and huge walls were built around China because of what they're having now with the corona, right? And then the walls were being built so high, and then you put a holographic overlay over the walls. So China thought, well, we're the only country on the planet, and they would live as if they were the only continent or country on the planet, and they would think that they were the only ones and nobody else was there, as we have seen it in some movies that have been made, The Maze, or the Divergent, I forgot this series where you also have that kind of idea with different community with different levels, and then it turned out there are actually other humans, but they thought they were the remaining survivors of a huge catastrophe, right? So what if that's the case? And then there was the observers outside that was meddling with this and using this as experimentation, and where they actually were in contact with other higher advanced forms of civilizations. Not necessarily extraterrestrial or exosystemic, but humans like us, but in different variations. They all agree to keep that the ones inside the enclosure, or China under the walls and under the Truman Show. That's why I like the Truman Show. This naivety that the ones that are inside think that is what it is, but it's all just stand-ins and actors and things that are coming and going and not really, and just observing as a kind of social experiment, what have you, right? Or as a part of, yeah, there was a quarantine, and yes, there is no longer a pandemic, but we keep up the pretense because we now made a factory out of it. There's science projects and what have you. We don't know. So that could be a possibility, right? And then you would say, well, people are kind of waking up. Things are moving the right direction, which it should, but we need to give them cover stories so they don't right away get onto us, so we kind of can push this generation through without that generation waking up. We had the older generations that did the spiritual teaching system that kept them busy. Now this generation, they need to be more sciencey, so we do the alien agenda and crafts and technology, so we get them that direction. And then they die out, and then we'll sit in our versions of humans that will not question what we have done, because they will be our civilization. Then we'll take down the enclosure, and then everything will be good and fine, and nobody would know what we actually done, made out of feeling bad about having done something to the fellow human beings. And I think that's a huge portion of the story. So what would happen if I disclosed that? That would be hearsay, right? Because I have no evidence. I have none of these humans with me. I have no whistleblowers. I have no one coming saying, this is what we've done. We had the military projects inside the enclosure, which were the Majestic 12 and these kind of things. And there are actually Majestic 13 and 14 and 15. They've been going on, but they are not out in the open anymore. And there are these things, it's just hearsay, it's just information I get in my head. That could be cube, that could be interference, that could be interception, or it could be that we are the last little colony of humans in the entire universe and everything around is completely negative alien agenda and they're all hostiles and what have you. That's the other end of it. So that would also fit in, but it will all come down to this kind of, let's feed them some kind of information that keeps them busy so they don't really want to understand what's going on. And we see that already inside the enclosure, right? It's happening already in many different ways with fake news and deep fake. And we don't really know if the person we're seeing on a video is actually a person or an avatar, or what we're listening to is actually the real person or AI or what have we. We don't know anymore. It's very confusing, right? So the first step is when we go in and we say, well, I want to do something. Well, what do we want to do then? And how do we do that? And that is for me, the way I work around this is I do that often. I take a piece of paper and I take a pen and then I write down in boxes. You could do a mind map, but that's too advanced for me. I'll just have to think about what is the mind map. And it then ends up being some weird, busy kind of thing that I can use for nothing. So I use boxes. So I put things in the different boxes because that's the best way my brain works. And then I write in, what is that box? For instance, yesterday I did the hybrid projects. What do I know about the hybrid projects? What do I know about the New Atlantean projects? What do I know about the transhuman agenda? And then I looked into these boxes, visualizing them, seeing them, and then I just kind of, I can't be bothered. I can't do the whole hybrid insectoid inserted genetic malfunction and mental field ADD, ADHD kind of thing that goes with these kids and these family setups and what's been done and what is all of this project. Even though I know a lot of information about it, I just feel tired looking at it. That's, grays and insectoids and these scavengers, and I just can't, you hear it just kind of, all energy fizzles out of me. So, it's no go, cross over that one. Then there is the Neo Atlanteans, the dark ones, and I get the military projects, and I just go, I just want to vomit, so cross on that one. And then the last one, the transhuman agenda. It goes without saying, not going to go get entangled into that one. So that kind of takes that out. What's left then? The enhanced humans, the fifth cycle. There I feel this kind of intriguement, if there's a word that is called that. I feel intrigued. I feel this kind of, there's something there. I don't know what the fuck it is. And when I try to think about it, it's like my brain is crumbling and it wants to go there, but it doesn't know how to go there. It's like my brain is saying, I'm completely out of training here. And that's what typically tells me, something's going on, and my heart feel goes on in a different way. And I get this gut feeling, and I get this feeling of injustice and this little bit, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on there. So in that, I begin thinking, okay, break down the old forms. And what does that mean? That means, what have I made a preconception about it? What have I thought about it? I just gave you this whole long story about this and that. What if that's false? What if that is too much Truman Show, too much the movie The Matrix, too much things blended together that my brain has concocted and pulled in from all sorts of things I have envisioned? What if that's not the case? So I need to break down all these thought forms. And that means break down the old forms, but the old forms can also be emotional forms. It can also be ideas which are mental or emotional emotional, or as I said, this is gut feeling. I feel this, I feel that, and my brain's doing this and that, what have you. And then look into our fields and say, what is their information? Why is it past life? Is it current life? Are there visions? Are there dreams? And then look into all of that. So begin a type of clearing work where everything we kind of thought about what we want to do, we break that down so we can look at it with fresh eyes. So we really look at it from what we could say a perspective of mindfulness, where we are in the now observing, what is this? And then start all over and then build up kind of what is then in this fifth cycle alternate reality disclosure. What does that actually mean? And what is it? And where does it take me? And there then I look into as a kind of a path. When I say specific words and the path ends, then I know that's not a project. But when I say the right words and I begin to have the feeling that the path itself that I put out, the trajectory itself becomes focused. It's like a code stream that unfolds, as when I said fifth cycle, alternate reality disclosure, then something happened. Then there was this kind of movement. There was this kind of little bit. Then I hear a little bit of sound in my inner ear. I see a little bit of light. I see movement. I see something that's going on. It's not there. It's faint. It's dizzy. It's not clear, but there's a path. And then I know, okay, then I can step on the path. So that's the path. And that goes to point number 2. So we kind of break down all the old stuff so we don't get into a rabbit hole and don't take what's out there. We're not doing the whole kind of what have others done, because I've done that 20 years ago. I know, not that I know everything in the world, but I know enough because I had period of my life, which many of you have had, where we just kind of were absorbed into what we could find on the internet on these of UFOs and alien agenda and all the thoughts of activation, ascension, or whatever we would come up with. And these are the old ones, so to speak, the old God and what they did, and we've got new ones. But whenever I listen to the new ones, they're not really new. They're just rebranding what's already been put out there. Again, the rabbit holes. So that just needs clean table, off the table with all of it. And then start with fresh eyes as an innocent, as a child, as if you have never looked into any of it and you're beginning that journey right there. You have your backpack, you have your stuff. That's all you have. You're like the fool. You don't know where you're going, but there's a light. There's something you want to achieve. There's something you want to go for. And I see that light and it calls for me. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it's taking me. And I'm just envisioning, literally just going into that light and say, okay, I follow the trail. I'll go on that path. And that's the capture the next step of the evolutionary ideas. And you can say that path of progression or path of development of ideas or path of creation or path of whatever it is. It needs to be a path. It needs to lead somewhere as a purpose or a function. And the purpose and the function is not goal. It is what is the purpose and the function of this? Well, for me, it's transformation of energy. For me, it is expansion of my awareness. For me, it's figuring out what is this, because there's something that I'm missing in the puzzle of what we're doing here. There's something that's still not there. There's something's missing and I don't know what it is. I can't say what it is. I don't know what it is, but I know it's there. And that's how I've been operating my entire life. That's when I began the whole academy before I went to Australia, and I worked with some of the fourth dimensional downs there and got some good ideas of how to do some things. Well, it was aimed at Australia, but since they disconnected, then I could take the ideas and make them mine because I had created it technically. So it was my ideas. They just gave me a headline, right? Because that's how this group works. So when I go with that not knowing what I'm dealing with, the ideas that I'm pursuing, and I don't know what they are, as I've done with everything in my life. When I began the whole academy years ago in 2010, my idea was I want to teach people how to expand their awareness. I want to teach them how to reach higher consciousness potentials without using the existing thought forms, because I could already see they were not working. If you ask me how they're not working, I don't know. I just know they're not working because I can see out there. I can see people that have been doing it for years and years and years. They are not anywhere near where they're supposed to be if they've done that. And then I could say, oh, it's because they're not done it well enough. So thereby, I went in with the chakra system. I went in full in, head on, crystals, daily clearing work, daily healing, meditation, working on the chakras, activating them. I got a lot of stuff going on that one. And then I figured out, well, there is a possibility, but then then it moved into past lives, and then it moved into the Hara quarter, and then suddenly, bam, the alien technology, and there I got the answer why it's not changing anything. So I'm pursuing something, I don't know what it is. And I know deep down, and that's some of my original teachings where I said, well, if it's the right path and there's energy on it, then reality must respond. It's the law of reciprocity. It must respond in a manner where energy will be given for the one that are activating that level of knowledge that needs to be put into process, into motion, into integration, into something that leads to progression. And then if the energies are correct, and it's not always working that way, because some of the ones that have been most progressive are not necessarily the people with the largest amount of money, right? Typically it's the opposite. But there will be this drawing in, the call will come out. Once the ideas are right, then there will be this call out where people will come, it's not about marketing or anything. It will be put out there, but because it's like a beacon of light, it's like that light tower that suddenly comes up and begins to shine. And then people that have been looking like zombies in all of the dark places just going ding, 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 not going, and they suddenly see that light, and then it just goes ding, and they're like, whoa, something's going on there, igniting their minefield, and this kind of, whoa, something's going on out there. I must look this out. I must see what it is. And then figure out, okay, what can they use that for? And then if they find, and that's where those of us who are doing this, and me as well, I could do it all for free. But there is also, I have to pay my rent, I have to pay my bills, so therefore some of it is for payment. And the ones that are really into it, they will feel that push to both do the free material and then move into the paid material. Unfortunately, most people today are halted by negative forces, underworld forces, old forces, their past, their insecurities, payments, all sorts of stuff is going on right now. That makes it pretty difficult and kind of are distorting and preventing these original dynamics from actually working, which they used to do years ago. So that's another game that we're in where things are not working as they're supposed to. So even though we know it should work this way, it's not always the same as it does work this way. But we can't lose the faith in the natural dynamics. We must trust in the process and trust whatever we need will come our way, whatever that means, be it people or circumstances or chances or opportunities or whatever it is. And then we must investigate what this is. And that's the evolutionary ideas. It could come in forms of people that are saying something, that are putting something in. It might not be a success. It might not lead to something. It might be something you thought was a good idea, but then you work with it and then just kind of, yeah, no, it's not really that doesn't match. It feels off. And you can't say why, and you don't need to know why. It just feels off. Go with your gut feeling on that one. And there's, of course, also the zeitgeist via intellectual research. And when I talk about this topic, I've done the research years ago, and I've done a little bit here and there looking in, but I'm always, the new ones that are up there, always got a dark one in my face when I look at the promoters today. It's like the Neo-Atlanteans, they are all over the fucking place. So I don't, sorry about the language there. So I don't feel the need to look in right now, but others, those of you who are new to this, those of you who are younger, who are not in their 50s and been doing this for some 30 years, right? You need to do some kind of research. You need to look what's out there, whatever you're coming up with, whatever you want to put into motion. And again, I'm here mostly talking about services that are based upon what we call intellectual capital, or awareness capital, or something that goes with developmental processes of the inner human, the energies we're made of, the constitution that we have. For instance, if you ask me, would I go in, for instance, let's take more down to earth kind of thing. Would I go in and teach people how to work with food, the way that we're doing now, the food, health and environment, creating more course material than I'm already doing because I'm creating tutorials while I'm doing the updates throughout 2023. Would I then market myself as a new type of vegan energy and vegan food energizer, how to work with food in a proper way that will amplify your energy system? system, not as a product in itself, because the background information for that is so huge that you can't just say to people, put your hands on the food and then you clear it, because if their energy system's not activated, if they don't know how to transform energy and they don't know what they're doing or why they're doing, they will just create more distortion. So this is the problem when we work with energy. There are a lot of good ideas. We can do this and that, whatever, but there are limitations to it because we are trying to avoid to create more distortion. We don't need more bullshit information out there. We don't need more half-cooked cookies that are half-baked and are raw in the middle and not really working well. And yeah, you can eat some of it, but then you have to discard the rest of it. That's kind of the distortion energies, right? So if I were to go into this, aside from what I'm doing this year with the food and health and environment, where I'm doing experimentation and get that part of my own life back on track, because I kind of put that little bit of side down, prioritized it just to the minimum requirements, and then going back in and say, okay, we are going to the fifth cycle. We are having those of us who are part of the fifth cycle. We are linked to the blue light sun, and we will experience the reality through the blue light because our energy field is rearranged inside the blue light configuration and density 1 configuration. That means that the food we will get will mirror that back to us. So we need to work with food in a different way. And that's where my heart lies. So that means that the only ones I could make this material for would be the ones in the fifth cycle. And they are not fully activated yet, or awakened yet, or aware yet. Whatever word, there's a word there that needs to be invented, because it's not being awake, it's not being activated, it's not being aware, it's something else. Because they have technically worked their way to that level, but they have only worked their way to that level if they have been what we call deemed preservable. So in a way, it's kind of the preservables and their new teaching systems that we are coming up with. So they're not really sleepers. They are appointed for the fifth cycle. So that's in mobilization right now. So I'm just waiting for that mobilization, these patterns to be arranged from the fifth cycle workstation, because they are there. But the question is, with the whole alien agenda, have they made it, or is there actually an alien agenda? That's the next question. Have they made it, or is there actually an alien agenda, right? Or extra systemic racism. And I have had plenty of encounters. I could say, yes, I'm pretty sure there is, but I don't know how advanced these interactive holographic technologies actually are. Even though I feel they're organic, they might just be completely what we call tangible holographic technology. So I'm not sure yet, right? So thereby also the open process, the open question. So that's when I say evolutionary ideas. It's both looking at what's already out there and breaking down the old forms. What's the next step? What do we need to do to push humanity to get to the higher level of understanding of their reality? Because that should always be the goal, that whatever we create should be for the betterment of humanity. It should lead to some kind of potentials that will lead to a broader expansion of who and what we think we are as humans. So we become more civilized and we become more advanced. So we understand that the world is so much more than we think it is. And that's also a hearsay, because I can't prove it, right? There's nothing what I work with that I can prove, other than as I work with it, it creates a pattern that makes more and more sense. But we also know the brain does that. That does not make it true either. It just means we've now created a pattern, which is called a scheme, right? We have now created a scheme, or a schemata, which we think is the perception of reality, but actually it's our creation of our perception of reality. So does it really mean it is the reality, and onward and so forth? So when we try to nail things down and say this is evidence-based, or this can be verified, we'll just end up saying the only things that can be verified. Can it even be verified? For instance, when we talk about what's the verification, compared to what, within what paradigm, compared to what type of science, and onward and so forth. So we always end up in this understanding that if we want to put something, say, put it down, say, this is the truth, this is verified, this is evidence-based, we will always end up according to what and within what paradigm, according to what rules. So nothing can be proven. So it's all about perception of reality. So our goal is to create the most accurate type of perception and say, well, and what is the accurate? Well, first and foremost, it's one that's always in a process. It's always something that is in a sort of evolution, where the ideas can change and adapt and be upgraded. So, but that's a process in itself. So that could also be a rabbit hole. You see where I'm going? We can always push things to the extremes where we lose our footing and where we lose our grounds. And that's one of the problem as with the mind field, because as the heart field has this trap of compassion and go into, I just want to feel bliss and I just want to feel the nice feelings and not feel the bad feelings. And I'm okay with sitting in for hours in the good feelings, but I don't feel comfortable with dealing and transforming the bad feelings, right? So the mind has that kind of, it spirals off. It loves to spiral off. All the little entities there, it's kind of, hoo. Let's go into weird thought processes because that gives us energy. And then you have to clear them out and also ensure that your evolutionary ideas are not just fodder for the energetic parasites of your mind field. So that's also part of it. And sometimes when you do intellectual research, you actually discover that you get in contact with thought forms that are creating energetic parasites. So nothing is ever simple in this world, is it? So with all of that understanding, you will then say, okay, I'm already, I'm bogged down already. Too much information, Randy. How am I going to do this? Well, the important thing in these two things are, first, what have I actually said that is the main takeaway here? It's self-observance. It is understand where you're coming from and where you want to go with it. It is about what matters to you and what is important to you. Because if we keep going with that one, that we want to create something that will help others, we will always get entrapped into the idea, well, will it help others? Or do they actually want our help? Or should we even help them? So whatever we're doing should, even though I say should be for the betterment of the world, it does not mean it's for the betterment of humans, even though the idea should be targeted for humans so they can progress and they can process that information. But they will always do it in their way and they will always do it in their pace. And what they will come up with and what they will get out of it will very often not be what you have intended. So when we create this, similar as when we work as healers, we can't impose our idea on what we want to achieve with our product or our processes or what we put out there, our project. But we can work with it in a manner that where we can exemplify, where we can grow with it as well, so that we understand that the main goal of what we're doing is something that leads to growth potentials in us and in others. But we don't know what the growth potentials are. We don't know where they lead, and they might unfortunately lead to a lot of distortion. So thereby you need to be top notch in everything you are doing. You need to have the highest criteria of perfection, of purity rate, standards, and progression rate in everything you're doing. And you can only achieve that if you work with it yourself and you just have this energy and you work with it as energy and purify it and clear it and work with it in energy work and work with the ideas. And when we do this mental processing as I just spun off there and says hearsay, I don't know what it is. So that means because I have that doubt, yes, that could be a cube that could block me and put that in doubt, and I get rid of the cube and then I look at it again. And yes, it could be parasites. I clear out the parasites and then I look at it again. And then that's the process again and again and again until the pattern stands sharp. And then I see, yes, there's something to it that is not inserted technology. It's not interception. It's not cubes. It's not parasites. There's something to it. And then I'll ask, why should I do it? Why? Does people care? Probably not. Do I care? Absolutely. Why do I care? And then we go into the emotions and I feel my heart feel there because I feel it's unjust. I feel it's unfair. I feel, and then I kind of say, yeah, that's not the right angle, because then it will just be for an angle of anger and resentment. And that will create distortion, right? That will create parasites in my heart field and snakes and what have you. So that's not a good idea. So that needs to be cleared out. I cannot do it from the angle of being pissed at them because they used to be my students and they're taking my ideas and they're thwarted into this fucking enclosure. And what's meant for good is now being used for ill. Yeah, clear that one out. And then back in iteration. That's the iteration for us that are working with energy. We need to be on top of why we're doing, what's the purpose of it. It cannot be for others. We cannot expect others to follow through with what we're providing out there. So we'll just get disappointed if we're doing this because I want to activate humanity, which I've experienced with the whole academy and kind of, yeah, it does activate people, but not in the ways I had envisioned. And they are far slower than I was, so they need much, much more time. And what am I to do in the meantime while people get to the point where they either do it or they don't? And all the implications and the challenges and so thereby, that's where we really just narrow it down and say, okay, I do this because I feel it's the right thing for me to do. It feels right to do it. Why does it feel right? I don't know. I don't need to label it because I want to save humanity, blah. Nobody wants to be saved really, right? And everybody wants to be saved on their own lifeboat and by their own means and by their own effort, not because I say so, right? So they need to get to the point where they understand why they want to be saved, but not by me, but by themselves and by their actions, by their thoughts and their emotions and their processes. Choosing it, the right commitment, principle 7, right? So that's not about it. And correct partnership, principle 6 also plays in here, where I kind of say, well, if I am to do that, I am to work with people. So who would be the right group for me to work with? But most of the people that I would see within, for instance, the alien agenda, they have been doing it for so long. So they are the old dogs. They don't want to learn new tricks, and they don't want to have me come say this or that or whatever that will tear down some of their concepts and ideas. And they'll probably fight to their teeth, to their comfort zone and their perception fields and what they have made of thought forms and patterns and patterns of perception and ideas and everything that they have built over the course of 30 and 40 years. So even though they are the heavy lifters and the heavyweights, they actually have that knowledge that I could go in. But what if that all of that knowledge is promoted? What if all that knowledge is false? Because I have been dealing with people that are very, very locked into their teaching system or whatever they have been working with. And I come in and say, well, it's all false. Very few are ready to take that in. Most will say that's very interesting, but yeah, no. And then they'll begin to list up this and this and this and this. And then if they finally get on board and say, yeah, I think you're actually right, then it's just a matter of 2 or 3 days, they're back in the rut again. They go back to their habitual patterns of thought processes and ideas because it's too difficult to get out of the way that they have already made up for so long, or because they have not been in the process of breaking down their thought forms. They have not been in the process of having evolutionary ideas. They have been in the process of having stationary ideas that gave them a functionality, that gave them a purpose, that gave them self-identification, that gave them a name, that gave them a reputation, that gave them the ability to travel, that gave them the grounds to become who they were as this professional, this or that or whatever. It gave them the 5 minutes in the light and as a success, as this is the one we go to with that knowledge, right? So they're not interested in going out and saying, yeah, I've been talking to Randy Green and she says, you can kind of hear, so that doesn't work. So they have to have some kind of encounter or something where they wake up. And when I would say that, I just get right in there from some of the military projects that are running some of these promoter programs within the UFO communities. They're just getting never going to happen. So I just kind of, okay, fine. I'm just backing up of that one. So these are the fun things with me when I touch ground with certain ideas. I get entities that are coming in. Are they just parasites? Yes. But if these parasites are part of these people, well, even though it comes up and it creates a hollow overlay presenting as to be some kind of darkish thing, it's still a snake and it's still in that human and still controls that human. So that snake is not interested in me going in and meddling with its human, as these snakes have a tendency to think about the body that they are coexisting within in a symbiotic relationship, right? So they're coming in and saying, back off. You're not to awaken these people because this is my turf, this is my territory, this is my home, and you are not welcome here. And then I get the push with a little bit of dark code streams on top of it. That's just what happened here. So that's with the UFO community. I don't know if I thought about someone specific or something, but something happened there. So that's also the zeitgeist. So with that, we begin to say, okay, well, give me 2 seconds. So that's some of when we are really activated our energy system, get into the higher layers of what we can do and what we cannot do. And that's, for me, that's always the problem with whatever I come up with, because do I lack ideas to what I want to put out there? Do I lack of ideas that I find interesting that actually would make my heart shine and smile and make my life much more fun? No, I got so many ideas. I could do so much. If it were up to me, I would create this huge expo. I would create communities. I would do this. I would do that. I would just run over the entire world in a pace that nobody would be able to catch up with. If I had zillions of dollars, I would probably be able to drum them up, fundraising, what have you. If I could just be let loose and not have this constant parasites and people and shitstorming and underworld forces and what have you, that always comes up whenever I get a little bit too, yes, keep going. I get the evolutionary ideas running and I get my machinery up and the wheels begin to vroom, 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 vroom. Then I just get the equal counterforce that just takes me out, and then I'm down for weeks and then I have to build myself back up. And it's just kind of, what the fuck? Why is it so difficult just to let those of us who can make change? Why not just let us do the damn changes? I don't know why, but I still ask the question. I still get a little bit pissed about it still, because there's so much we could do, but people are so controlled by these parasites. That's one of the reasons why I went in and focused so much on the energetic parasites. And even people I've been working with for years, they're still, to their big surprise, still creating parasites. I'm still creating parasites. Whenever we use the energies in a wrongful way, when we activate our energy system, we actually have a tendency to create more type of parasites. But the plus is that we actually know that we're doing it, and we should be observant of it and clear it out right away by focusing on our body and all these kind of things. And then it suddenly becomes not putting out the good idea, but suddenly just to go in and do the clearing work. So these are the traps that are happening all over the time. So with our ideas, it's a good idea to create the energy frame for the new. That is the version of the next step. So that is to, with all of this understanding of, it's not just about having a bunch of good ideas, but it's also about, okay, we need to put it into some kind of frame from where we can work. And that's where we begin to, instead of brainstorming and have ideas all over the place, which we just had in point 1 and 2, we go in and say, okay, if all of these great ideas, all of these breaking down and parasites and clearing work and what have you almost got tied there or by just doing that, then we kind of understand, okay, we can't cover all bases in one go, so we need to take it one step at a time. And that's the energy frame for the new. And the way I create the energy frame is always, again, piece of paper where I make boxes of what should be the steps, as in kind of step 1 to 10. What do I want to achieve with this? Sorry about that. Not as in I want to make people understand this, which is, of course, the basic foundational idea with it. But the main goal, and it's not about for profit, it's not about earning money, it's not about selling products or making courses to sell so I can pay my bills. That's not the right approach either. So the right approach ends up with transformation of energy. And it should be an exploration. It should be an explanatory, exploration journey where you go in, and every step of the path that you are walking on will lead to, first and foremost, a deeper understanding of reality. Make sure it's not a rabbit hole, because then it won't count much. But if it's the right type of energy, the code streams are right, and you will, once you get your holographic sight, you can see that. Then you can see working with this will open up new levels of my energy system that will allow me to integrate more consciousness potentials. And then we'll say, are you then just doing it for your own benefit? And I would say no, because the original ways that our reality works is that you cannot do anything just for yourself. You can do it as the first of many for the highest good of the many, and that is for the construction. So when I always come down to, as in kind of when I do something, it's not for humans, it's not for the awakening, it's not for this and that, whatever the base program, working my way quickly through that, because then the parasites, prohibiting, blah, 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 we just went through that, the steps there. So why would I do that? Because the construction asks of me to do so I can create that code stream from where others can follow if they are interested in doing so. It is a potential code stream that needs to be activated by my engagement, by my activation of it. And these fifth cycle visions I have, they might be of the past, and then I might end up just seeing there is no fifth cycle, but there's the workstations, there's the technologies, there are the cubes, they're calling for me, and then I can begin integrating that, and then I might be the only one that's doing it, and I might not earn anything on it. but I'm still doing it to activate the 5th cycle potentials of the construction. And it comes to me in a form that I can work with. As in, would I get intrigued with it if the 5 cycle cubes did say, you need to do this so you can get the sciences? Well, I would. But put it that way, if it's cloaked and if it's difficult to get, then it is pinging the correct, okay, let me reframe that one. Rephrase that one. The cubes are pinging from the workstation in their correct vibration and in their correct code streams. And that's the code stream I'm seeing. But I have so much distortion about it so that it comes to me and activates all of these distortion energies so I can clear them out, the distorted thought form, so I can clear them out, get rid of the parasites, get rid of all the information I have studied so far, make clean slate, and then begin to get the zip files from the cubes that will then teach me what this is about. Will that be operational inside our reality? I never know. But it will be energetically for the next step of humanity and for the next step of the construction under the Ancient Ones and my original purpose and function as an igniter. So this is again where whatever I go into of ideas and creations and projects will always be in a concordance with my original purpose and function. So that's the sum of that. The energy frame for the new will end up for me being the correct purpose and function of my energy system. That's why the cubes are calling for me. That's why the cubes want me to go down that path and figure out what it is and then activate these technologies. And it might just be a month's work. And then the process is over. Then I got to the workstations. Then I put my hand on. I got the holographic imprint, and then that's it. And then the cubes are running, and they can either disconnect from our reality and pull out, or they can begin drumming up the currents that are needed to activate the original grid work of the outer domain 5th cycle workstations. And then it's a longer project that which I will then not work with as in putting it out there for humanity, but actually work with it energetically within the concepts and the architecture of the construction itself. And then later on, once that is up and running, then we can begin to activate some of the holographic teaching systems and some of the sciences there where whatever I will create will just create the language, will create the framework from where people can begin their thought processes that will create the architecture, that will connect them to the holographic teaching system. And that's a whole other way of working with things. And you see, when I work with these cubes, they are not aware of that humans on our planet are not capable of doing this because of parasites and what have you. So that's up to me to get people to go there. And that's where I get tired again, because that's the implementation process of change and how to make people adapt to this and how to make people grasp this and get it and really just get to the point where it becomes such a huge part of their everyday life. And then at the same time, it is this very, very long-term process. It goes on forever. It's like a process. Even when I began years ago, I thought, yes, this would lead to an outcome sooner, but I can see that's not possible again. But does that then mean we need to give up? No, it just means that we need to keep our nose to what's in front of us and not the long term. We know the long term. We know what the higher goals of it are. That is the construction, activation of the 5th cycle and developing a new architecture, a new level of consciousness, a new level of perception of reality, which we then, if we really get it as part of our everyday life, will begin to work differently within the base program. That's the whole point of this. That you're not just starting this and, oh, it's a good idea. You actually make it yours. So when you do go out and you talk to other business partners, you will attract the ones that are on top of the whole game with energy. And you will have conversations that are more in alignment with the correct partnerships where they are actually already ripe to change their ways somehow. And it will take a lot of time and a lot of challenges. And most people say, oh, I can't do the progression science. I can't do this and that, whatever. And then we come and say, well, what are the compromises here? What is most important? What should we do here? And then begin to work with this in a different manner. But that's a whole paradigm shift. That's a whole shift of awareness and consciousness about how we do work with this reality. And that's the biggest project that we are engaging in. All of our smaller projects should be part of that very, very large project. That how do we actually get whoever is ready to do that shift? How do we get these people educated? How do we get these people in alignment with the original advanced civilizations that used to inhabit our solar system, how do we even get them on board of that one? Should we even go with their aliens out there? Shouldn't we try and, as I also have done, try to teach people, hey, you're the alien, you're the one. We have had the alien agenda or the promoters saying that as well, but that kind of just, then everybody's kind of, yeah, I'm a Pleiadian, I'm a Sirian, what have you. That was not the point, right? So there's so much psychology, there are so many processes, there are so many steps, there are so many hoops and loops and what have you. So the whole kind of just when I think about that, then I can just kind of say, oh, I get so tired just thinking about all the steps that needs to be done. And that is why it's so important that it's something you feel is important to you too. Because if it's not important to you, then you will not last the distance. You will be thrown off way before you even get sails put onto your boat there, and you will never catch the wind. You'll just kind of, because as you heard me saying in the beginning of it, it's kind of this is a long project, as well as the whole project. That's a 12-year project I'm running at the same time, but the whole project should take part of that greater picture of how do we get a portion of humanity, I'm not saying all, but a portion of humanity to really grasp this? And that's some of the things where for now I've been working on my own, and I would love to have more correct partnerships and others working with me on that. But they are not ready. They are still too submerged into their base program stuff. So how do I come around that one? And again, that's one person at a time. That's not organizational level yet. That's one person at a time. And then I've been thinking about how do I then do that? And then I also understand that really to change a person, I need to do it one person. Seriously, one person. The ones I've been working with, they have had partners that were not doing the progression work. So that got halted there. That stopped the females, because that was primarily, it was from working with this. There were a few males, but they were also blocked by their female partner. So that was not possible. So for me, that was to, if you want to do this, you can't have a partner that's inside the base program. If you want to do this, your partner needs to do the progression work. And then people will say, well, my partner is doing a version of it. And then I'll say, no, you can't do my material. And then you have a partner that's doing another version of it. You have to both be on board this one. So you're completely in alignment with the same value system, the same concepts, the same basic energy architecture, build up processes, and the same type of clearing work and the same type of world perception. Equal children plays best, as we say it in Denmark. Yes, we need to have different discussions, but we can discuss the material, the progression sciences, how to do this in the better way, how to do this to achieve the highest outcome, not as a polarity, but as an opposition that leads to synergy in both that are involved, the Trinity structure. So that's criteria one. And the same goes with some of the ones we work with had children that were part of alien projects that did not allow their mother to do this. So that will hold it that way. So then it was not about what the mother wanted, but she was still a mother. She had to take care of the kid. And then the kid or the kids were part of other factions that said, that's a no-go. We're not interested in this because these kids are hybrid children or military project children, what have you. And we don't want the mother to activate because then she will transform the children and adapt their genetics into what she has become. And by that, our project will be lost. So yeah, not happening either. So thereby I'm saying you can't have children if you're doing this. And that's why people kind of say, well, what can we have then? Well, that's the good question. That's the good question. Again, that's where it becomes a little bit too cult-like, right? We don't like that. But there are costs in doing this. And the question is, how far do you want to push this when you have your idea creation? Are you willing to have to let go of everything with your idea? Are you willing to fight for your idea in all the right manners for the purity rate, the standards and progression rate, not being evil and mean and all this, doing it with loving kindness and with compassion and with understanding and via the principles and via the rules of engagement and via the energetic laws of our reality? Are you willing to try and put everything you have learned into the test of can you exemplify this from the highest possible level of existence and then be the role model for it? So that should also be part of why you're doing this as the first of many, for the highest good of the many. and the many are always the construction or the reality field itself first, because if that works correctly, then humans that are part of that reality field will align with the healthy system. If the system is unhealthy, they will align with the unhealthy. Hence, all the parasites, hence all the issues that we are having. So that's also part of it. So just to put that one in there, again, you have heard me say over the course of time, you can't do this, you can't do that. But that's because as long as you want to be on both chairs, it's going to be very difficult. You have to choose at some point, base program or alternate reality. Can't do both. You can have double awareness, where you understand that this is the base program and this is the alternate reality, and you work with it as a spectrum of energies you can go in and out of. But you are always solidified, strongly centered in the alternate reality perception, not the base program. So that's important to take that one in as well. And with that, we will continue the next podcast.